Comic books seem to exist in all languages and cultures, from east to west. In subject matter, they go the whole range, from inspired and fantastic to sentimental and silly. All of them, however, are easy to read, to pass around, store, and throw away. And this is why I think it's important to look at the images produced in comic books, because they're a very cheap, easy to access medium. They're really easy to pass around. I remember the first Tintins I read were from my friend Ghazi, who, after school would give me his editions and I'd read them and then pass them on to another friend. It's a very easy to pass around these images. They're very easy to translate because the images are, stand on their own and you just have to change the text. So I think it's really important to do an analysis of the images produced in comic books, as Said claims. So there's different comic cultures in which you have the heroes originating from them. And I knew them all very well, I'd read them all. In the United States, you have Superman, who represents, the United States ethos to interventionist, superpower, going in and having these special abilities and helping other people in peril. In Europe, I would argue, I don't know about the German scene of comics too much. I looked at this local comic book store. They just had a bunch of Tintin, or Tim, as I think it's in German. But Tintin represents this, inquisitive. He doesn't have any superpowers, but he's very pure and very idealistic, and he travels around the world cataloging very objectively the rest of the world and getting into adventures, but solving it with, wit and his own charisma, and he's very vanilla, I think. Okay. And then Japan, you have Astro Boy. So Astro Boy is, coming out of the World War II Japan, and has, this hyper focus on technology and no weapons or anything like that, just kind of an innocent child who's fused in this post-nuclear Japan. But my question was, when I was getting into this, what is the equivalent, who's the Algerian Astro Boy or the Tunisian Tintin or the Syrian Superman? What is the version of these people, and how is the culture reflected in comics for the Middle East? And at the time when I started, there was no scholarship or place I could look to for that answer. But through my research, I've just found out there was a lot. So here is my comprehensive look at Arab comics from 1920 to 2010. As you can see, and this is what we had to whittle down for the exhibit, by the way, which is a challenge. So in the beginning, you could see Al-Awlad. So these comics are happening contemporaneous to when Tintin and all these comics from the West are being created, and sometimes before. For example, Superman wasn't created till after World War II. So you have comics happening in the Middle East, children's comics happening well before. Now, the way I always read this timeline was when I was in Cairo and the book markets, is I read it as a bit of, I read it as translation as Trojan horse. And what I mean by that is, I was looking at this market and saw that it started out with a lot of original productions of Arab artists figuring out Arab identity and telling Arab stories for Arab children in the beginning and kind of finding that voice. And then later on, kind of towards, so in this first half, and then towards 1960 onward, you have this dearth of Western products coming in and much easier to translate and kind of dominating the marketplace. So you have Tintin in Arabic, Superman, The Flash, Lulu. It's just these are the comics that I actually saw when I was a kid in Beirut. And so I saw these translated comics supplementing the production of investment in original Arab comics creation. And I found them kind of grotesque because they were bringing with them Western ideas as they were progenited in these Western countries and carried them, but they were being translated to Arabic and represented for Arab children as if they were Arab comics. And only later has my thinking evolved to see that as more of a conversation between the two cultures. But I'll start out looking at the Trojan horse element, so essentially ideas of Western imperialism being embedded in these characters that we know from the West for Arab children and why that's problematic. And then I'll look at how it could be more of a conversation instead, and there's more nuance to it.